Thank you for joining us. My name is Aaron Rouse. As I was saying a couple minutes ago, I started the FAM in entrepreneurship class almost 5 years ago. And I started it because I was really inspired by the USC Alumni Network and this Trojan family mentality of I may not know you, but I want to help you because we're a part of this same network. And I think the music industry should be the same way. I think it should feel like a family, hence the fam. So our core values are collaboration over competition, and this idea that everyone you meet can provide value to you in some way. You just have to be open to it. So one of the things that we do that I think is pretty different in our virtual panels, trying to mimic the in-person events that we had, was one of my favorite things is after the event when everyone is just meeting and talking to the guests and meeting other people that are there. And that's where I think most of the genuine long term relationships are being built. And that's what we're hoping to emphasize. So, halfway through the event, we'll give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves to other people on tonight's event, and hopefully you'll meet someone that you might be able to collaborate with or just become friends with. So, without further ado, I'd love to introduce Jason Ma. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I'd love,
Excited to be here.
yeah, I'd love to start with your background and hear a little bit about your story and what's led you to where you are now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I started in the Bay Area. I was born in Texas. I grew up in the Bay, San Jose to be exact. Um, if we want to talk about music, I've just always been into music at a young age. I started rocking a Run DMC t-shirt every day, 5 days a week from fourth grade to fifth grade. Totally stank and reeked of me, but it was dope. So, I was a diehard hip hop fan. Grew up on MTV, Young TV Raps, BET. It was all before you guys were all probably born. And, hip hop was my religion. Hip hop was my culture. Hip hop was a lifestyle, right? Hip hop was not just music. Hip hop was fashion. Hip hop was the way you talked. It's the way you walked. It's the people you hang out with. It's the places you go to celebrate the shows, the culture, whether it was b-boying, DJing, MCing, graffiti art, or beatboxing, what they call the five elements. And then from there, I just grew with this passion at a young age. I started rapping when I was like 13 and just doing like ciphers and like hanging out with just a bunch of junior high kids
Right.
and high school kids rocking ciphers, in the middle of campus, beatboxing and battling each other. I mean, it was just a lot of fun, and you're inspired. And this is like the golden age of hip hop. This is like 93, 94, 95. This is when Tupac and Biggie and, Nas and Wu-Tang and all these classic hip hop MCs and everyone that came out had different styles. Like all the rappers now sound the same. They all sound the same. They all look the same. They all moan the same. They all cry the same. They all Xanax the same. Like yeah, back then, like if you didn't come original or you didn't come correct, you'd be called a biter, right? You would be called someone that copying someone else's flow, someone else's style, right? Whereas today, if you don't sound like literally everyone else, you somehow aren't relevant, which is in my mind the craziest thing, right? Because life is about being original, not being a copy. So I grew up in this era where it was like hip hop was like kung fu. It was like, what's your style? You know what I'm saying? What's your sword style? What are you coming with, right? How are you flowing? How are you different, right? Let me hear your bars, like how's your rhyme scheme? And so that became my life. That became everything. I used to sneak out my house at 15 years old, jumping out the window. My mom thought I was asleep and running to get in my friend's car, going to downtown San Jose with a fake ID, going into a club and just like seeing my favorite rappers perform, mosh pit. It was just crazy. And that was amazing. That was an amazing time to be alive in culture, especially hip hop culture. And, you know, uh, 16, 17, I had an encounter with God. I was on my way to jail for grand theft. That's a whole nother story. I was at my fourth high school. And, I had this come to Jesus moment. I got born again,
Okay.
and I didn't have to go to jail. Judge acquitted me, even though I pleaded guilty on all charges, which is crazy. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to turn my life around. I want to get kids off the street, give them a second chance, give them hope. And I'm going to do that through a Bible study. But I was like, how am I going to get my drug dealing clients, my hip hop friends, my Southeast Asian gangster Vietnamese homies, and my drama theater class, because I was on the side hustling as an undercover actor, to church, to a Bible study. So I was like, you know what? This is what I'm gonna do. I went to my pastor's Chinese dude, and the church was like empty in the middle of East San Jose in the hood every Tuesday night. So I was like, yo, can I borrow the church on Tuesday nights? And I'm gonna get all my friends from the hood to come to church. But since it's empty, it doesn't scare anybody because these are all crazy ass kids. But the prerequisite is you study the Bible with me, learn about Jesus for an hour. And after that hour, roll up the linoleum, the auditorium's yours. And it just became a full hip hop, you know what I'm saying, event.
Oh.
So dance crews you would know now, like Jabberwockies, you know, and other MCs and artists came out of that Bible study 20 years ago, believe it or not. And so the manager of the Jabberwockies now was a DJ for my hip hop Bible study, Nick No, and his DJ group, part of my French, was called Finger Bangers. and then Finger Bangers after the Bible study is absolutely amazing. And this thing grew to hundreds of kids every Tuesday night. It was the most popping event in all the South Bay. And B-boys, DJs, MCs, rappers, artists, everyone would come out. But it was a very positive thing. And kids would talk about their lives getting changed, getting off of drugs, getting out of gangs, the whole shebang. So then I finally graduated from high school. My mom cried. She didn't think I was going to graduate. And she was just happy I wasn't in jail. And I started working at a tech startup. And every year now, this event, we would have a 1-year hip hop anniversary event where we would invite like thousands of kids off the streets. And we would have it stacked. It was like a hip hop, Rolling Loud, Coachella, right? And but it was all positive, no drugs, none of that. And I was like, yo, how crazy would that be if I got MC Hammer to come speak? Because MC Hammer became a born again Christian after he left Death Row, after he went to Tupac died, and he was like, I'm done with that life. Started preaching at this mega church about 30 minutes from my house. So I started listening to him preach every Sunday night. I was like, yo, that'd be crazy. What if I got Hammer? So I chased him down for 6 months, finally got to him, and was like, yo, this is my vision. This is what I want to do, help the youth, you know, get off the streets. We're doing it through hip hop. Can you come speak, tell your story? Everyone's gonna be blessed. And he was like, I'm down. And, you know, I was like this little wide-eyed young Asian American hustling, you know, maybe he saw the hustle in me, didn't give up for 6 months, and was just like, what do you do? And I was like, I work at this tech startup in Cupertino, across from Apple Computer. He's like, okay. He's like, I invest in startups. I'm a venture capitalist. He goes, you're Asian. You must know how to use computers. Come work for me. And I was like, you gotta be shitting me, right? So I was like, MC Hammer wants me to go work. So I quit my job the next day. I drive to the East Bay, an hour away, and everything in the office, Bluetooth, wireless. This is 1997. Think about that. You guys were just born, okay? And he's like, Bluetooth, wireless, whole thing is Wi-Fi. And he's like, we're laying fiber optics, Hollywood's going down, music industry's going down, rich content, digital distribution, that's the future. Hollywood's coming to Silicon Valley. I'm like, yo, bro, what are you smoking? I was like, really? So he was super prophetic. 20-something years later,
Yeah.
who owns Hollywood? It's not Sony. It's not Warner. It's not Paramount. It's Facebook. It's Amazon. It's Apple. It's Netflix. It's Google. NFTs. God knows. Whatever the next thing is, right?
Right.
So me and Hammer, you know, we looked at literally hundreds of companies during that time, like I was at YouTube when it was 5 people. We're at Salesforce when it was 10 people. I was at Twitter when it was 3 people. We're at Facebook when it was less than 100 people. You know, my email is jason@gmail.com. That's how you know how old I am, right? So going back and looking back, that's how my journey started. And I was very, very blessed to have a mentor who just celebrated his 60th birthday 2 days ago on Clubhouse. We celebrated when we're sharing all these old stories. And it really was amazing in the sense that, you know, I was able to learn under someone at that age in my early 20s and just carry his bag and drive him around and just observe, right? Like I'll tell people, and this is something about this whole TikTok generation, because everything's so short spanned and people don't understand loyalty, commitment, time investment, not being distracted, like focus on one thing, right? Learn to be great at one thing. Learn from someone who's great at one thing. You know, I was just his PA, right? I washed his kids' diapers, like literally took him to Little League baseball training camp, you know? But that experience was absolutely invaluable to who I am today. I learned everything by osmosis, right? I don't learn from being in the classroom. I learn from being in the workroom, right? And just seeing how he interacts with another entrepreneur or a billionaire or a VC or a founder or the guy at the gas station, to the homeless man, to his neighbors, how he treats people, right? I took that all in, and everything that I learned, you know, made me who I am today. And so I always say that when you're in your 20s, you want to just be a sponge. Learn the most you can from someone that's done it, right? And don't try to figure it all out yourself yet, but learn and observe. And then later, when you're in your 30s, try to do it yourself. Anyways, so we invested in Justin Lin's first movie. If you don't know who Justin Lin is, he's the director for Fast and Furious 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, now, or 3, 4, 5, 6, and now 9, 10. When we met Justin, he was just a young director, graduated from UCLA. And he had met Hammer at CES, Consumer Electronic Trade Show in Vegas, on the ground floor, and was like, yo, I'm making this Asian American film. It's called Better Luck Tomorrow. Every single one of you go on YouTube tonight. It's $1.99. It's gonna be the best Asian American film you've ever seen in your life, forever. Don't give me that Crazy Rich Asians. Don't give me this Minari stuff. BLT, greatest Asian American film of all time. Okay, define Justin Lin. So he was like, you know what? I'm sick and tired of Asians being geishas and goonies and geeks and gangsters. You know, I want to make a real movie based on a true story, a murder in Orange County, it's Asian American high school in Sunny Hills. And he was like, you know, I want to tell the story. Grabs Hammer's number 3 months later. We're driving. Hammer gets a phone call. It's Justin. Hammer. I maxed out 10 credit cards. My parents put their house on mortgage or whatever. They lost, you know, they've given everything. If I don't have X amount of money in the bank account tomorrow, they're going to take away all my equipment, everything. And I can't finish my movie. It's over. Like, Hammer, can you help me? And, you know, Hammer will say it himself. He didn't know why. It's just something that he remembered in Justin's eyes. He walks over to the bank, wires them the cash, doesn't look back. We don't hear from Justin for a year. I'm in the office doing my assistant job. I see this thing pop up. Roger Ebert, Sundance Film Festival, gives 2 thumbs up to young Asian American director Justin Lin for a movie Better Luck Tomorrow. And I'm like, Hammer, isn't this that dude, that filmmaker that we gave money, that we thought ran off with the money? And he was like, no way. Calls Justin. Justin's freaking out. We fly down to LA for the film premiere, and it's the first movie for John Cho, who's in Harold and Kumar, Soul Searching, Star Trek. That was his first movie as a lead. Sung Kang, who's Han in Fast and Furious, okay, that dies in every Fast and Furious and comes back every other series, right? This was the prequel to him in BLT. BLT was a prequel to him. That's why he's called Han. His name was Han in BLT. That's why his name is Han in Fast and Furious. Jason Tobin, if you watch the series Warrior on HBO Max, right? That was his first movie. Karen Anna Chung and Perry Shen. And it was just an amazing moment. And when I saw this, and I saw a film with an all Asian American cast that was shot dope, acted right, cinematography was fresh, and it was just like, I had never seen anything like this in my life. Definitely not in the English language. And I was like, yo, I want to quit everything I'm doing in venture capital and startup world. I want to go down to UCLA or USC, get my master's in film and television. Sure, I'm saying you guys are all thinking USC. Yes, I'm sure. And I was like, I want to represent Asian culture in mainstream media the right way. I want to correct the false perceptions that have been created by fake media on what my culture is and what it represents to my country and what it represents to the rest of the world. So long story short was, that's what I did. And the journey began there. 20 years later, whatever, 15 years later, I started 6 companies. Some of them you know, some of them you don't. 88 Rising, Stampede Ventures, early investor in Musically, now TikTok, early investor in Triller, helped put together, that acquisition. Recently acquired Low Motive. I'm launching another media platform that's representing Asian culture to the world. They'll be launching this fall, so keep your eye out. And that's the journey.
There's a lot there. Thank you for sharing. There's a lot of pieces of advice in there, but I'm curious, what is the best advice that you've received from someone else, and who was that from?
Who do you think it was from?
Okay, your mentor is my first guess.
MC Hammer.
MC
All
Hammer.
right.
That was my second guess.
So what happened was, I literally was like, yo, Hammer, I want to leave venture capital and I want to go pursue this mission in media, entertainment, and culture. So he was like, go for it. Yeah, my blessing. So I went back to my Chinese pastor and I was like, yo, Pastor Poon, I think God's calling me to Hollywood. And he was like, oh, that is not God. That is the devil. He was like, that is Satan talking to you. That is not God. And I was like, yo, what? He's like, God calls you to be a third world missionary. You need to go Bible college and do God's work, with the poor. And I was like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. And so I didn't know what to do. So I go back to my mentor. I call him Pastor Hammer. And I was like, 4 a.m. I still remember recording a K-pop band. This is like 2003. It was like way early before this is like before Solid and HOT. And we already had the vision for K-pop. It was crazy. Because literally we moved this K-pop band called X Large. 6 months, lived in Oakland, California. And we were like recording them, shot music videos, East, West, the whole entire thing before K-pop even became K-pop. And I was like, Hammer, what should I do? I got Hollywood in one hand, I got missions in the other. And he was like, Jason, if I were you, I would go to Bible college, do God's work, serve him on the mission field. Because if you go to Hollywood in the state you're in right now, those demons will eat you up and won't come out alive. He goes, I've been there, I've done that. You don't need that right now. Go build your character, lay a strong foundation, help the poor, serve the sick, do God's work. And if God calls you back to Hollywood, it'll still be there. I took him at his word, dropped everything. And for the next 4 years, I went to seminary, graduate Fuller Theological here in Pasadena, got a triple majored, and I went to 40 countries and started 300 churches and missions.
Wow.
And was a crazy experience. And it was around 2006, after I was just sleeping in trees, doing exorcisms and planting churches and schools and hospitals, all kinds of stuff. It was just a lot of work, and I just burned out. And then I had this like awakening, this epiphany, which is a whole nother story. Basically, that it was time for me to actually, now I was ready. Basically, not me, but I felt like God was saying to me, I was ready to go back into entertainment and media. And so I transitioned from there, and I invested and started my first digital media company called Adventures.tv and Plan C Agency, which managed the rap group Far East Movement, MC Jin, and a little singer named Bruno Mars that we used to work with as a writer.
Yeah, you did a song with him, didn't you? Love.
That's right. So I did 4 tracks with Bruno, actually. I only released 1.
Okay.
So I paid Bruno. So I was doing like spoken word over hip hop beats, right? It was like preaching over beats. Whole crazy story. And it was a funny story, actually. So Kevin Nish from Far East Movement, leader for Far East, he was like, yo, Jay, we're not sure what to do with you, man. Your rap's like, you know, you're not Jay-Z, you're not Eminem, you know. It's like, I wasn't even like, you know, and he was like, man, when you preach, man, when you pray, it's powerful, man. He's like, you ever thought about just like praying over the beat? I was like, praying over the beat? What do you mean? He's like, you got any of your sermons on YouTube? And I was like, yeah, I got a ton of my sermons on YouTube. He's like, play that beat your friend just sent you and play one of your sermons over the beat to see what happens. So I played this hip hop beat that my friend gave to me. He literally said, God told me to give you this beat. And then he sent it to me, and which is the beat on Love. And then I played a sermon over the beat, and it landed in this crazy cadence, and it felt like Eminem-ish. It was like offbeat, but on beat. It was like crazy, right? And he was just like, holy shit, man. He's like, this is crazy. He was like, you're like Eminem and Joel Osteen like smashed into one. Like, this is crazy. We're gonna like sell out stadiums. I was like, what? I was like, you serious? He's like, yo, can you just like preach and just talk over the beat about anything? I'm like just talk, like preach, of course. And he was like, yo, we gotta get you in the studio. So I went to the studio the next night, and I laced that whole song Love, if you go on Spotify, in one take, freestyle. Nothing written, just off the top. 16 bars, 3 verses. And he was like, this is crazy. He's like, yo, but Jay, we got to get someone on the hook to make it sound, you know, more pop, for like radio friendly. And I was like, who you got? He was like, yo, I know this guy. He sounds like Michael Jackson. He needs the money. We work with him really closely. He writes for us all. And I was like, what's his name? His name's Bruno Mars. I was like, who's Bruno Mars? And he was like, check out his MySpace. Again, rewind. MySpace was there before you were born. MySpace was the first Facebook before there was Facebook. All right. And so I check out his MySpace. I'm like, damn, this dude sounds like Michael Jackson. I was like, how much? Calls up Bruno. He's like, yo, I got a package deal. He'll write and record 4 songs, $1,500. I was like, 1,500 US dollars? He was like, yes. I was like, I'll sign it right now. I write the check, still have it. Check stuff, $1,500, Bruno Mars. He needed apparently extra Christmas money for his girlfriend to buy gifts for Christmas. And he comes in and laces me 4 songs, writes and records. It's so good. I'm just like, yo, I don't need to get someone else to sing on it. I'm just gonna keep him on the track. So me and Bruno Mars, Love gets released, instantly millions of views. And then 6 months later, FM drops like a G6, goes #1 for 15 weeks, sells almost 15 million plus records. And then, of course, months later, Bruno gets signed to Atlantic. Billionaire comes out, Nothing on You, and then Just the Way You Are, and we're off to the races.
That's awesome. I wanna hear a little bit about how all of that led to starting 88 Rising. I know you talked a bit about your venture capital, but I'm more curious about the music specific ventures that you're working on.
I mean, 88 was an evolution of what I did originally at Adventures.tv, which never launched.
Okay.
Which was, I had a dream one night where I saw a YouTube page with all my friends, and they all had their own different shows. And I was gonna launch a digital platform back in 2008, 9, where I could just give all my friends that were artists like a YouTube channel where they could just create content and launch it, and we could brand it like an Asian Def Jam, right? And then that morphed into 2011. transitioned out of that company, started my next company, East West Ventures, which is my fund now. And we started managing talent from Asia over to Hollywood, talent from Hollywood over to Asia on digital with our investor and co-founder, the founder of HTC Corporation, Cher Wang, and my best friend, Phil, who was the head of their content and venture. And at that time, China was like really starting to blow up as far as an entertainment media capital. And Hollywood was like chasing that China money because they were like, yo, Hollywood's like a prostitute. Hollywood just goes where the money is, right? And they're just looking at China like, oh my God, cha-ching, right? Like the biggest box office in the world. So all this billions of dollars was coming into Hollywood, vice versa. We started bringing talent from Asia over this way and then vice versa over that way. We started doing deals in between. And as this was all happening, YouTube really started blowing up on the creator level. So you started seeing, the Kev Jumbas, the Ryan Higas, the Michelle Fans, on and on and on. And then you saw Maker Studios and Fullscreen and Machinima and all these multi-channel networks. And then all of a sudden you saw digital brands, Tastemade, right? Vice, Vox, BuzzFeed, right? And so at the time I was like, yo, why isn't there an Asian digital channel or label built on YouTube, but focused on Asian youth culture? Because that's the biggest demographic in planet Earth, like 2 billion Asian kids, right? So I was like, this is stupid. Like, someone should do this. I'm going to do it. So I talked to this guy named Alan Devlewall, our first investor, and he had just funded All Def Digital, which is African American. He had funded MITU, which is a Latin American multi-channel network. And I was like, what about Asia? And he was like, what about Asia? He's like, you put together a business plan and put together a team. I'll write the first check. So I was like, all right. So I bumped into my buddy, Justin Chan, who's now a director for the movie Gook and Miss Purple. And he was, Twilight kid. And he was like, yo, Jay, your vision sounds a lot like my friend Sean. And he's working at Vice Media right now. You guys should talk. You guys should meet. Because I think you guys could combine forces. Because I was like, I need someone that's not just Asian America. I need someone that has a global Asia vision, like Asia to the world, right? Because Asian America is a very small subset. You go to Asia, that's the future. So it's the largest population on the planet. So we met up and basically agreed to start 88. And at that time, I called it RICE, RYCE, because when I went to pitch meetings with venture capitalists, they were like, what are you trying to do? I'm like, an Asian digital media channel. They're like, what? What does that mean? I was like, you ever heard of Vice Media? And they're like, yeah, I heard of Vice. I was like, how much is it worth? Like, 5 billion. I said, we're Asian Vice. We're called RICE. And people started writing me checks.
Love that.
Started the company, officially renamed it to 88 Rising. And then, of course, we got lucky again. We found Keith 8, Rich Brian, Hire Brothers, Joji, Nikki, Chris Wu, Jackson, on and on and on. You should see our new kid, Warren Hu. That kid's the future. He's like, you see, has anyone seen the Warren Hu MV that just dropped yesterday? This kid's like Edison Chen meets like Chris Wu meets Justin Bieber in an Asian body. Like this kid's the freaking future. He's like the future. He's the future 88 Rising. But anyways, that's how it started.
That's great. I want to shift gears a little bit to an important current event topic. It's no secret that the Asian hate coming to light is long overdue. I'm curious what you have been doing recently, and obviously you've been doing something like this the last 20 years, but also what you are telling your artists that they should be doing, but also what we as young aspiring music professionals and artists can be doing to spread that message.
I think at the end of the day, you can't be afraid to speak out, right? And I think Asian culture in general, we're not loud, right? And that's just our culture. It's just built into the culture, right? You don't talk back to your mom. You don't talk back to your dad. They'll beat your ass, right? That's just the culture, right, in and of itself. But you have to understand we're not in Asia, right? If you're talking about Asians in America, we're in a culture that is loud. We're in a culture that's independent. We're in a culture that doesn't have a government that just spoon feeds you and says, okay, this is what it is, and this is what you got to do. Like, we're used to hierarchy. We're used to Confucianism. We're used to just, okay, tell me what I got to do, and I'll just go do it, right? No questions asked.
Right.
That's why a centralized government in many ways works for China. It doesn't work for the US because this is an independent nation where, look at COVID. It's crazy. I feel like everyone I know's got COVID. like literally. I feel like almost every other person nowadays, when I meet someone that hasn't gotten COVID, I'm like, oh damn, you didn't get COVID, right? And so it's like, you go to Asia, no one has COVID. Like, COVID. Yo, put them in a bubble, like now, right? But why is that? It's because our fundamental culture is independent, where it's me, myself, and I. I don't care about you. I don't care about him. I don't care about her. I don't care about my neighbor. All I care is about myself, my pursuit of life and happiness, my liberty, my rights, right? So you can't make any American to do anything, right? Because every American has the right to be loud, has a freedom of speech and the ability to speak out, okay? So you got to realize that when you're an Asian in America, you can't be quiet. You can't just think, oh, I'm just going to get ahead by just not saying anything and just working really hard and being a really good engineer, or being a really good writer, or being a really good teacher, or being a really good entrepreneur. It doesn't work that way. Who are the most famous entrepreneurs? It's not the Waltons. It's who? Elon Musk. He's loud. He's talking. Speaks his mind every day. Tweets. Whatever. Shakes the world. Steve Jobs. Same thing. Bill Gates. They speak their mind, right? This is why a lot of Asians can't hang. There hasn't been an Asian Kendrick. Where's the Asian Kendrick? Where's the Asian J. Cole?
Yeah.
Right? And it fundamentally has a lot to do with our belief that it's okay not to be loud. It's okay not to speak out. Just keep your head down, work hard. And it's come down to the point where we're realizing, wait a second, this shit is fucked up. Real talk. My grandma's getting beat with a pipe in her face. My grandpa is getting kicked off his wheelchair on the streets of SF. Like dominoes, right? Oh, because they think we're not going to speak out. We're not going to sue. We're not going to press charges, right? We're not going to come hard at them. We're not going to aggress. And that is a lie. When you move into a new culture, you have to adapt to that culture. And then you have to still figure out how to bring your culture into that culture, right? While still having a voice and a seat at the table. And so for me, I think it's about advocacy. It's about speaking out. I was talking to the head commissioner of the White House and the President's Office for Asian American Pacific Islanders yesterday. He's a good friend of mine. And he was saying to me last night, he's like, you know, Jason, that there's never been a march for AAPI on the Washington Mall in the history of America. Not once. Think about that. He's like, could you imagine if 200,000-300,000 Asians showed up on Washington, D.C. Mall demanding justice? Do you think they would get hurt? Do you think they might get the attention of the president's office and all his people? Yes, but it's never happened, right? He's like, do you know, Jason, that all these Asian American coalitions and organizations, that none of them advance justice for AAPI? None of them are actually lobbying in the White House, trying to like create change, create new policies, new laws. Why? Because they're all just hoping that the government funds them for another year. So I'm like, you know what? It's ridiculous, right? What I've learned as an entrepreneur is that if you see a problem and nobody's fixing it, and you have a solution or the means or the ideas to actually fix that problem and bring the solution, it's on you, okay, to make that happen. I, as an entrepreneur, have never waited for anyone to give me a handout.
Right.
I have never, ever waited for someone to give me a seat at the table. I've always created my own tables. I've always fucked the system, because the system will never be kind to you. You can only be kind to yourself, and you can only pave your own way, and you can only do it yourself and make a path for yourself and create the own fulfillment of your own destiny if you're willing to work hard and execute when you see a gap, when you see a problem, find the solution. So anyways, with all that being said, you know, I've been mobilizing for the last few days different leaders in different AAPI communities in different sectors, from tech to media to entertainment to sports to religion to, you know, education, government, to come together and say, okay, why don't we have our own NAACP, right? That's backed with not just tens of millions, but hundreds of millions of dollars. The biggest law firms, right? The biggest lobbyists, right? Millions and millions of signatures.
Yeah.
Why don't we? Let's talk about it, right? Why aren't we bringing a conversation to the White House? Why aren't we getting out there and doing a rally? Why aren't we getting out there and putting media, right, that's actually challenging that perspective? So anyways, if you guys know MC Jin, we're putting this on together. I'm not going to give you any information on who's a wit on the collabo, but it's going to be coming out soon. It's going to be a very powerful song. I think it's going to be an anthem for the movement. And yeah, stand up and speak out.
Yeah. I like that. Shifting a little bit, with all of that said, what inspires you to continue to keep going forward, whether it's to progress the justice for Asians and Asian Americans, or for yourself, as you were saying earlier?
You know, it's kind of crazy. Like, my favorite movies are all these like dude movies, right? Like, my favorite movie of all time, It's a Wonderful Life. We watch it every Christmas. Second favorite movie is Braveheart. Third movie is Gladiator.
Classic.
Fourth movie's Matrix. Fifth movie's Fight Club. You see a similar storyline in all these stories, is that why does William Wallace fight for Scotland's freedom? Why does Maximus fight to rid Rome of an evil, false ruler? It's not because they want to be brave. It's not because they got the time to do it. It's not because they're trying to prove their manhood. It's because of love. It's because of passion. It's because of conviction that I face injustice. And somehow, something is moving me and motivating me to go do something about that injustice. You killed my wife, I'm coming to kill you. Okay? You just kill my wife, you kill my friend's wife, my other friend's wife, my other friend's dad, and everybody else, and this is fucked up. I'm not having it. And I'm gonna go do some shit about it. Okay?
Yeah.
Heroes are not born on sunny days, right?
Good quote.
Heroes are born out of tragedy, out of injustice, out of crisis, out of suffering, out of pain. So don't look at pain as a bad thing. Look at pain as something that God is gifting you to embrace and to find your true purpose.
Right. It's how you grow.
Exactly. And so, you know, an orange, you don't know if an orange has got juice unless you squeeze it, right? So for me, it's about following my conviction and my passion. There's a lot of people that don't like me. There's a lot of people that hate me, and a lot of people that gossip and talk shit all day. But to me, you can't focus on the haters. It's not enough time in a day to worry about what people think about you.
No.
What you need to worry about is, what are you doing with your life? And are you living your life with purpose? Are you living your life with conviction and passion towards something that, even if someone didn't pay you, you would still go after that dream because you believe something needs to change? All right.
Yeah. So what are you doing next that allows you to lead your life through conviction? Are there certain trends that you see in the music industry or in the world that you are following or anticipating? Or are there certain projects that you're really excited about coming up that you haven't mentioned already?
End of the day, my mission is to bridge East and West through media, entertainment, technology, stories, and talent. I've been living this mission for 20 years. So my conviction and my mission doesn't change. It's always the same. I wake up the same conviction every day. I work 16, 18, 20 hours a day, nonstop. I've been up since 7 in the morning. Got another meeting after this. I don't need to work. I can retire. You know what? So my friend told me last night, he's like, Jason, you're always going to work. People that work every day to the day they die, they live longer.
Yeah.
Scientifically proven, right? You were not created to sit on your ass. Okay. Like, believe it or not, but I'll say this. There's a difference between a job and your work. A job out of college is your testing ground. It's what pays the bills, what puts the roof over your head. It's what puts food on the table, right? A job is what allows you to survive. But your job should only be a transition point or a stepping stone or a catapult or a catalyst to your work. A job is what you do. Work is who you are. And once you find your work, what you've been placed on planet Earth by God to do, you will never have another job a day in your life to the day you die, because you found your purpose. Warren Buffett is going to be investing money to the day he dies. And he's going to love it.
And long after.
And long after, right? Bruce Lee was a philosopher to the day of his death, not just a martial artist, right? So find your work, find your passion. Don't make excuses, go and follow it.
That's beautiful. I love it. I know you've only got about 10 minutes left, so in the interest of time, I would love to open it up to some audience questions, and then we'll go into the audience breakout rooms. Aaron Shaw.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, fam, for putting this together, and thanks, Jason, for speaking. I think it was a really inspirational speech. Like hearing your mission, talking about what transitions have occurred in the Asian American community. I think I was just wondering because, like you said, like USC is a really interesting institution in that it takes Asian American advocacy really seriously. And I think when you talked about direct action, there are like orgs on campus, quick shout out to Scape, that are really trying to manifest like direct action approaching this kind of stuff. But I definitely do see where you're coming from. Like there's still a long way for our community to go in terms of getting stuff done and getting stuff done our way. So my question is, what kind of transitions have you seen in the Asian American community through your years? And what are some like good signs that you see, like good trends, and what are some things that kind of worry you in terms of our development as sort of a proud culture?
Thanks, Aaron. Great question. What's beautiful today is the fact that we live in a digital world and the fact that there's social media, period, right? Social media is not good or bad, it's just how you use it, right? And so I think because of social media, like I was watching a bunch of TikToks today about different Asian Americans just like pissed, right? Speaking their mind, speaking out. So the beauty today is that we have social media, we live in a digital world. Most of your consumption is on your mobile phone or on some type of screen. and anyone has access to upload and create the narrative they want to create, right? And so you have to use that to your advantage. I didn't have that growing up, right? If I wanted to get a media, I had to go figure out how to buy a TV ad. I'm like, where do you even start, right? Like, how do I go make a movie, right? Like, how do I make a record and even put it out, right? This is like back when people had to get into radio, right? Now you just put on Spotify, you put on TuneCore, boom, it's on. Ask Q, he knows, right? You can put an album out right now, right? Drop it on YouTube, put it on TikTok, put it on TuneCore, CD Baby, it's out, right? That's the beauty of where we're at right now. That's why I think we're seeing the type of responses from BLM, Stop Asian American Hate, right? And others, Hispanic community, people crying out like, yo, you would have got away with George Floyd in 1998. Probably even 2005, probably even 2010, probably possibly even 2015. You're not gonna get away with that in 2020, right? Because there's too many people with phones, right? You can't escape it. Someone's gonna capture it. They see you doing some crazy shit. Someone's gonna pick up the phone and be like, oh, damn, what's up? Yo, that's crazy, right? So it's not like all of a sudden Asian hate crime started happening out of the blue. It was like, it's been happening. Black lives being harassed by cops, been happening. Why did NWA, have a song called Fuck the Police in the late 80s? Because it's been happening. Probably, who knows, even more back then. It just wasn't captured. So my point is that now that we have the ability to create awareness with our own volition and our own technology and our own voice, that's the excitement I have. Because now in a split second, we can be like, yo, we're rallying and we're gonna bring 500,000 Asian Americans onto Washington, DC, hashtag Washington Stop Asian Hate. Who's coming? You couldn't do that 10 years ago. You can do that today, right? So I think that in and of itself is a very powerful opportunity. And it excites me to think about what can happen because of that.
Thank you, Aaron. That was a great question. And thanks, Jason. I think we've got time for one more. Does someone in the audience, Stefan, am I saying that right?
I go by Steven, yeah. First of all, thank you so much, Jason, for your time, and thank you to FAM for putting this event on. But I just had a question. So you talk about NWA a lot, and I was just curious if you see 88 Rising as sort of this Asian take on NWA in the way that they represented these social issues that were happening in Black American communities. And so, if so, given that 88 Rising's artists are largely from overseas, how do you compromise this with the fact that these issues that we feel today are largely Asian American experiences?
Great question. You guys are smart kids, man. You guys ask me some hard ass questions. Let me try to answer this the best way I can put it. Great observation, Steve. Number one, most of 88 Rising's artists are from Asia, not Asian American. And we did that purposely. We were like, yo, we want to celebrate Asian culture, right? Because in Asia, there's no racism in Asia. Racism against ourselves. You know what I'm saying? There's no racism in China. There's no racism in Vietnam. There's no racism. The only people that get raped, like my friends in Hawaii right now, he's telling me it's bizarro land where the Asians are punking white kids in Hawaii. Okay, so racism is just a subsect of the majority of the mass culture, right? So when we started 88 Rising, we're like, let's stop focusing like on this chip on our shoulder, like we got to prove ourselves to these white, Black, whatever, white people, right? Let's go celebrate Asia because we're the biggest damn population in the planet. We roll the world. We got more money. We got more tech. We got more military. We got more power. We got more people. We got more everything. We got better food. We got better everything. Why in the world are we trying to kowtow and prove ourselves, right, to these non-Asians? Doesn't make any sense. That was always my mission and my mentality. I was like, I want to show the world the beauty of Asian culture. Not just Asian American culture, Asian culture, right? How does that coincide now, right, with where we're at, right? Do we still have a responsibility? Absolutely, right? Anyone that has a microphone, especially a microphone with millions of followers around the world, has a responsibility. And I think, you know, we are already doing that. We're speaking out on those things, right? And we're taking a real stand saying, hey, as a media company, these things are not okay. And this is what needs to get done. And so I will say this, if I'm from Japan and I grew up in Japan, it's a lot harder to speak to an Asian American issue if I'm Japan from Japan. I'm Japanese from Japan versus me being Japanese American, right? Because you can only speak from experience, right? No one's gonna care what Xi Jinping thinks of stop Asian hate in America. They could give 2 cents about what he thinks. He might condemn it and say it's bad and stop. But that's so far removed, right? Who's feeling it? It's you at your school, in USC, in downtown, getting attacked, people threatening you. I've been threatened. Motorcyclists try to run me over in Burbank, throwing Asian hate crimes at me back in March last year. That's why I got a gun, right? And when you feel it yourself and you experience it yourself, it's a different thing, right? And that's when you have authority to speak on it. So going back to what you're saying with NWA, NWA had the authority to talk about what they were talking about because they were experiencing and living it. F the police, because they've been F'd by the police infinite amount of times. And when Ice Cube was getting interviewed by literally Congress, right? And record companies like, we gotta shut gangster rap down. And they're like, we're not. Why? Because we're just speaking the truth. Try to hold us down, try to put us down. You might call it gangster rap. This is our reality. Okay. So I can't expect our Asian artists from Asia to speak to stop Asian hate because that's not their reality. It's different from my boy Jin, because Jin grew up in Florida, grew up in New York. And that's why he's out there at the rallies and he's out there making songs, and we're putting out a song very soon, right? It's personal to me because I live half my time in America and I grew up here. I know what it's like. But I also grew up my summers in Hong Kong where everyone looked like me. So anyways, I hope that helps answer your question, Stephen. But long story short is speak from a place of authenticity. And when you do, that's when you have authority.
Great. Thank you so much.
A great question, Stephen, and thank you, Jason. I know you have to run, so I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us tonight. This was so many nuggets of advice and some really great stories. So thank you for joining us. Everyone else, if you guys would like to stay, we're going to hang out and do some breakout rooms, give everyone a chance to meet and potentially collaborate with each other.
Happy Easter, everybody. Stop Asian hate. Speak out. One love. God bless. I'm out.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks for coming, guys. Let's break out. What do we got here? 10 people.
We can cut the recording here. I think that's good.
Oh yeah.